This week's 1044 is brought to you by Chevron Delos 600 ADF Ultra Low Ash Diesel Engine Oil. It's time to kick some ash. Just a few short years ago, self-driving trucks were getting all the industry buzz. We'll move over electric trucks because driverless tech is back. Hey everybody, and welcome to the 1044, a weekly webisode from the editors here at CCJ. I'm Jason Cannon, and my co-host on the other side is Matt Cole. Millions of dollars have been invested recently in self-driving truck platforms. Companies like Aroura, TuSimple, and Google's sister company Waymo are all inking deals with OEMs like International, Freightliner, Paccar and Volvo, and fleets like Ryder, JB Hunt, and FedEx. And all these players are coming together to form dance partners with this self-driving technology.
A handful of carriers have made a handful of driverless runs over the last couple of years. FedEx, just a couple of weeks ago, announced it was shuttling cargo between Dallas and Houston, a round trip of about 500 miles, with autonomous technology, and that a driver was only on board as a redundant layer of safety.
Between driverless tech companies, TuSimple, Waymo, Aroura, and Plus, and there are a lot of others, but let's just focus on this group, millions of driverless miles have already been logged. So why aren't self-driving trucks sharing the road en masse with quote-unquote regular drivers? Well, Wally Deck, who's Vice President of Government Affairs and Public Policy for Plus, said tech companies are now reaching the stage where the driver can be removed, but only for short periods. And the challenge is demonstrating that this technology is actually safer than a human driver.
You go and look at the all the data, the statistics, and you see that the CDL holder is a safe driver. So how do we demonstrate that these technologies are safer than those already safe human drivers? And so at the stage that we're at now, we can do these demonstrations on the roads and for short periods. But again, all these companies, just like Plus, we're collecting these miles of data, these edge cases where you can't necessarily simulate. And all that data coming in, you have to process and create the AI system that can adapt to all sorts of different scenarios. So we're moving very quickly towards that end goal of a level 4 truck, but we're still a few years out before you can totally remove the driver. And then in those cases, you're talking about the long haul, middle mile portion of that. And the first and last mile is going to be further down the road, because those are the more challenging aspects of trucking, because you've got more interactions with pedestrians, with passenger vehicles, more stops and goes than you get on the middle mile on the interstates.
If the name Wally Deck sounds familiar, it's because he's the former acting administrator at FMCSA, and he's been involved in discussions about driverless trucks for years on both the regulatory side and now the technology side. And he said one common misconception around autonomous trucks is that they're not legal and that a person has to be in the vehicle. He says that's not the case, at least at the federal level. And in those states where it's not legal, Deck and his peers are trying to change that.
The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, in AV 3.0, a document that the Department of Transportation issued on advancing autonomous vehicles, stated that a human driver is not required to be in the cab. No regulations or statutes state that a human must be in the cab. So you have that baseline. Now, states do have the legal authority to regulate the operations of vehicles within their states. And right now you've got a patchwork of regulations and laws among the states, but there are a good number of states that allow these systems on the road. The majority of the states allow some level of autonomy on the roads. You've got one-off states that allow no automated trucks on the roads, and that would California being one of those. And that's why Plus has joined with a coalition of groups and others in the AV trucking industry to work with California to develop regulations that allow for the testing and deployment of these technologies on California roads. But Nothing is stopping the industry right now from putting an autonomous truck on the road, except we're not there yet. And again, our mantra at Plus and the other AV trucking companies is safety. And we want to make sure that the product that we put on the road without a driver during that middle mile, it is the safest possible you could get.
Sentiments regarding driverless tech, Wiley says, can change rapidly, and hurdles previously that would have made testing problematic in some states have already begun to fall away.
This is a rapidly changing area in public law and in technology. So I'll throw out New York as an example. They had a law on the books that addressed how you operate and demonstrate an autonomous truck on the roads there in New York State. You had to register with the DMV, and you had to work out an implementation plan with this New York State Police. And in that plan, you had to allow for how do you interact with this vehicle while it's being tested on New York roads. And also, you had to have, this was established a little bit later with another regulation requirement, was that the company doing the testing on the roads in New York would be required to hire a New York State police officer to follow the vehicle as it was being tested. Well, come April of this year, that law sunsetted, and there are no current laws on the books or regulations in New York that govern autonomous trucks or autonomous vehicles. So at that point, what sets the standard for the operation and demonstration and testing of these vehicles? And that's federal law. And federal law has the statement come down from FMCSA that says no, for at least for trucks, no human drivers required in the cab.
Wiley said it could be 2023 or 2024 at the earliest before most driverless tech companies look at fully removing a driver, which gives companies like Plus time to engage in third-party validation testing on top of their own testing, and to partner with groups and industry stakeholders to educate the public and elected officials, which he hopes will go a long way to swaying public opinion about the dangers and benefits of driverless trucks. Before we hear more from Wiley, here's a message from 1044 sponsor Chevron Lubricants.
Did you know that 90% of the ash and soot trapped inside your DPF right now is caused by your engine oil? It's not like you can go without engine oil, so there's nothing you can do about it, right? Wrong. Chevron spent a decade developing a no-compromise formulation when it comes to minimizing ash output and maximizing engine protection. Delos 600 ADF with OmniMax technology is an ultra-low ash diesel engine oil that is specifically designed to combat DPF ash clogging by cutting sulfate ash by 60% and extending DPF service life by 2.5 times. Delos 600 ADF also enables extended drain intervals thanks to an advanced antioxidant technology that prevents oil breakdown even at the high temperatures found in modern diesel engines. And by slashing the number of regens, Delos 600 ADF with OmniMax technology comes with a 3% fuel efficiency increase throughout the DPF's lifetime. If you're keeping score at home, that's decreased downtime, extended maintenance intervals, and improved fuel economy. That's real money in your pocket and time saved. Before you had to choose between protecting your engine or your after-treatment system, but now you don't. Delos 600 ADF with OmniMax technology. It's time to kick some ash.
All groups working to help provide that information to not only elected officials and those working in the various agencies and departments around the country and here in Washington, D.C., to educate the public, to educate the media about these technologies. And again, this is a growing and developing technology. And every day we are demonstrating how safe these technologies are. But it's something that we are all working together to achieve and provide that information to the general public, that these technologies provide the automatic emergency braking, which is something is going to start being installed as a standard in cars, lane departure guidance assistance, and those technologies. As people become more engaged with these technologies in their everyday lives, they're going to feel more comfortable as we proceed.
Convincing the public is one thing, but what about truck drivers? Who's going to want to join an industry that's automating itself out of business? Wiley says autonomous tech isn't all about taking away anybody's job.
We've already seen from the pandemic and today, you've got companies out there, they're raising the wages of truck drivers. They've got $20,000 and $30,000 signing bonuses, but yet they're still having trouble hiring truck drivers. And the challenge is that it's the job is incredibly difficult. And you've heard last year, and you're still hearing it now, and it's 100% true that these truck drivers that are working every day to make sure that we have food on our tables and everything that we need at our grocery stores and everywhere else, brought to you by a truck. And we are incredibly grateful for what they do. But again, we are facing a time when who wants to be a truck driver? This is something that we faced when I was at FMCSA. How do you encourage somebody to enter into an industry that's difficult? And you have this perception that, AV trucks are coming next year, so why get into this industry? Well, I'm here to say this is something that we looked at FMCSA. DOT was required to work with the Department of Labor and the industry on a workforce report detailing out what's going to happen when AVs come into play. And what we saw was that there's a shortage right now that we need to fill. And with the average age of a truck driver around 55, 56 years old, and they're not entering in the industry until 36 on average, you could actually enter into the industry now as an intrastate driver at 18 and then 21 go interstate and retire as a truck driver. Look how vast this industry is. You've got millions of drivers out there. You've got millions of trucks, and they're not going to be automated overnight. This is a gradual process. And what happens is when you're able to distribute goods more efficiently with autonomous vehicles in that middle mile, it's going to create pockets of lots of new jobs at those first mile and the last mile distribution points. Again, those scenarios of the where you have more interactions with pedestrians, with other cars, bicycles, that's much, much further off for these new technologies than the middle mile. So there will be jobs in the trucking industry as a truck driver for years to come. And if you want to enter into the industry now as a driver, you'll be able to retire as a driver in this industry if you so choose.
Wiley mentioned we might be about 2 years away from the first step into full autonomy, and the maturation period for technology tends to be about 10 years. So what will trucking in 2034 look like?
Not a whole lot different than what we're seeing now. It'll be a mixed industry where you'll have automated trucks on the road, a good number of them, but you'll also have human drivers still doing long haul because, again, as you said, this is a process, and we're not replacing these existing trucks that the fleets have, that the owner operators have anytime soon, because what happens in the process? Fleet buys a brand new truck, say it's an autonomous truck, right? What happens with the truck that they retire out? They sell it. It's a commodity. They're not just going to scrap it and get rid of it. They want to make money off of that investment that they made. So they sell it down. You've got 96% of the industry is made up of companies with 50 or fewer trucks. They're not automating anytime soon. So what the large companies do is they sell to those smaller companies, the 50 trucks, the owner operators. And those guys are going to be out on the road for a long time to come. So you're going to have a mixed industry out there with, again, automated trucks driving, human truck drivers driving, and then a lot of human truck drivers driving those last and first miles.
Companies like JB Hunt and US Express are already testing driverless technology, but on the path to wide deployment, somebody has to blink first. Will it be the mega carriers like Walmart and FedEx, or one of trucking's more traditional players?
A lot of these companies, the megas are very, thoughtful and conscious about, their labor force, and the concern that some of them have that, if they start bringing on these autonomous vehicles, then what's going to happen to their drivers that they still need? Again, but they're not going to totally replace their fleet overnight. You still need those human drivers. And, maybe they think, I'll find another job and move to another fleet, or become an owner operator. So it'll be interesting to see who makes that first leap. It probably will be a couple of the megas and a few of the large companies. And, we're talking about 1% of the industry when we're talking the very large and the mega fleets, less than 1% actually. So it'll be an interesting dynamic to see. There's a lot of permutations that these guys need to look at as they adopt these new technologies. But as you know, we've seen the fleets having difficulties bringing on these new drivers, the mega fleets and the large fleets and the very large fleets. So they're going to have to do something to address that, and autonomous will be the solution to their challenges in the labor market.
If solving a labor crunch is one side of the driverless coin, efficiency gains is the other, because a truck without a driver wouldn't be exposed to hours of service requirements. But how much added capacity is really out there?
It's different from 100 trucks on the road versus 10,000 trucks on the road, or 400 or 40,000. But I think what you'll see is an exponential growth in the capacity that these vehicles can do. You've got a vehicle that, again, like you said, no longer burdened and challenged by the 14-hour day that a driver is faced with only 11 hours. And as we all know, I'm sure the drivers, most truck drivers out there, the vast majority of them never make it to that 11-hour drive time. They're like 6 or 7 hours of drive time due to various circumstances. But if you can increase that to where a truck is literally driving 15, 20 hours a day, you're going to see an exponential increase in the efficiencies of the system. Just like you're seeing off the port of Long Beach, where you've got container ships, 40, 50 container ships just sitting out there because the labor's not there and the trucking is not there to move those goods out of that port. So you've got all that sitting there. If you had autonomous vehicles that could go up, pick up those products, you'd empty those ships fairly quickly. But then the challenge is where you get to the distribution points. How do you handle that volume of goods that you're now going to get as a result? Again, that's where the first and last mile for the truck driver is going to come into play, and where they'll need even more of those drivers.
At the federal level, specifically with FMCSA, Wiley says there is an appetite to explore these technologies because not only does it seek to solve challenges in trucking, but also the supply chain as a whole, and it does so alongside truck drivers.
During the pandemic, we saw how vital that the trucking industry is to our national economy and our national health. And I think what we're seeing now is the challenges that the industry faces with the supply chain. And what we are working on at Plus and what others are working on is a solution to the challenges that we're facing on ensuring that medical goods are delivered, that food goods are delivered, and that the ever important toilet paper is on the shelves at our grocery stores and department stores. So we thank the truckers for all that they're doing. And we look forward to continuing to work with them as we develop this technology and including them in the gradual introduction of this technology onto our roads to ensure that their lives are better, their lives are safer, the road users are also safer from the introduction of this technology, and look forward to working with you all to move forward on this.
That's it for this week's 1044. You can read more on ccjdigital.com, and as always, you can find the 1044 each week on CCJ's YouTube channel. And if you've got questions, comments, criticisms, or feedback, please hit us up at 1044trucking@gmail.com or give us a call, 404-491-1380. Until next week, everybody stay safe.